New Zealand's parliament has voted to impose record suspensions on 3 MPs for performing this haka in the country's legislature last November. The 3 MPs are from the Maori Party who were protesting against a bill they claim would reverse indigenous rights. They've been handed suspensions of between 7 to 21 days. The previous record for a parliamentary suspension was 3 days. And Dr. Carwyn Jones is the lead academic at the Maori Law and Philosophy program at Te Wananga O Raukawa. He has been watching the suspension and community reactions closely.
What was happening today was that the Parliament was voting on the Privileges Committee recommendations. Privileges Committee made up of members from all parties in Parliament, and they had recommended what is the heaviest sanction by some distance ever in our Parliament for the 3 Maori Party MPs who performed the haka at the first reading of the Treaty Principles Bill.
And why was this vote taken up in the first place? Is it just about the disruption caused during those parliamentary proceedings last year?
Yes, so what was happened is as a result of the haka being done in Parliament, many people have seen that go viral, and that was then referred to this Privileges Committee who deal with issues around order in the House, and they undertook an inquiry, came back with their recommendations. One of the slightly unusual things about it was that usually that Privileges Committee would try to work towards a unanimous decision, or at least near unanimity. But in this case, it was only by a bare majority, the government MPs voting for this very extreme sanction, and all the opposition parties voting against it. So I think that is also a little bit concerning.
Yes, and these are, as you mentioned earlier, the heaviest suspensions for MPs in New Zealand's history. What sort of message is the government sending here, given that you have said that this is somewhat heavy-handed?
Yes, so these suspensions are very heavy-handed. The 2 party leaders have received suspensions of 21 days suspension from Parliament, and Hana Rafiti Maipi Clark, who led off that haka, because she's more junior, because she'd already served a suspension on the day, she's got a suspension of 7 days. Now, the previous most severe sentence that the Privileges Committee has handed out has been a suspension of 3 days. So those suspensions of 21 days, that's 7 times as much as what the previous most serious suspension was. And we can see actually that even in this parliamentary term, there have been instances of MPs, other MPs. We had a Green MP who crossed the floor, stood over a government minister, yelled in his face, received no suspension. We had an MP in a select committee, again, kind of physically intimidate the chair of the committee, no suspension. We had the leader of the ACT Party try to drive a car up Parliament steps, even though he knew the Speaker had specifically directed him not to do that, no suspension. So this does seem to be completely disproportionate.
Yes, and how has the community, particularly the Maori community, reacting to the decision today?
Well, I think that many Māori that I've spoken with have felt this quite personally, because it does seem to be even more so than some of the legislative attacks we've seen on Māori rights and the Treaty of Waitangi by this government. This does seem to be a real attack on an expression of Māori culture and identity. And so many people, I think, have felt very hurt by this.
Yes, and might the actions of those 3 MPs and their subsequent suspensions stoke divisions in New Zealand if they haven't already?
Well, yes, I think certainly will, because one of the things that we've seen, because it's such a severe sentence and it does seem completely disproportionate, I think what we will have seen already is that this sets a really concerning precedent in terms of a government effectively being able to suspend opposition MPs from Parliament for a significant time. I think that's very constitutionally concerning, but also I think it is a real illustration and a demonstration that Parliament isn't a place for Maori voices. I mean, that's what that seems to be saying to me, and that, we see actually the kind of violence and oppression within that parliamentary system.
And is the haka, seen as something appropriate to be performed as something to disrupt a vote in Parliament, for instance, in Wellington?
Well, I think the haka would certainly be a very appropriate response in terms of something that is expressing extreme emotion and energy, and seemed to be quite an appropriate response to a piece of legislation which was really undermining a foundational constitutional document of our country. And so in that sense, I think it's appropriate. Of course, there is the disruption of parliamentary proceedings, which I think was always going to, be found to be a breach of the rules. But as I say, the kind of punishment seems to be particularly severe. They seem to be particularly trying to make a point of punishing these Maori Party MPs for performing the haka in that context.
And has this entire saga, opened up a broader discussion about how and where the haka should and shouldn't be performed?
Yes, I think we have been seeing some of that discussion, and some of the concerns that many Māori have been raising have been along the lines of the fact, well, they're happy with us performing the haka when it's, for the All Blacks or what have you. But as soon as it's being performed in a very meaningful way, in a way that it ought to be used to express that emotion in a very genuine sense about something that's really important, then people say, oh no, we don't want it in that context. We don't want it to be political. But of course it is political. I mean, that's part of the whole point of it.
Have there been any differences in opinions when it comes to the haka from the Maori and non-Maori communities of New Zealand?
Yes, well, I'm not sure about that, but one of the things that the Maori Party MPs wanted to do with the Privileges Committee was to bring in an expert in Maori culture to talk with the committee about the meaning of the haka, how it's used and why it's used, so that there was good understanding, and so that the Privileges Committee understood that this was not an attempt to threaten and intimidate other MPs, but to understand that this was an appropriate response in those circumstances.
Okay, Dr. Carwyn Jones, really appreciate your insights and analysis. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.